Hey everybody, happy Friday. I wanted to do just a real quick video kind of explaining a little bit more about this project, the Teachers of St. Louis, because I get I'm getting follows and I'm getting questions about it, and I feel like maybe there's a little bit of misunderstanding and it might be a little bit easier to kind of clear this up and talk about what this project is. Number one, it's one that's completely driven by you guys. So if this doesn't make any sense, for us, if it doesn't really push forward the conversation around education in St. Louis and how to best support teachers, it's gone, no problem. We'll just move right on to the next thing. But what I'm finding is that I have a lot of people who are really interested in following the project, which tells me we're on to something here, but I don't have anybody volunteering for this. And so I know that being, the first few ones out of the gate could be a little bit challenging. But I also think that maybe there's a little bit of confusion, around it. And so I just wanted to clarify a couple of things just in case anybody was wondering and was thinking about a story that they could share. So clearly this is a very low production video. I just wanted to kind of explain things. And so if you hear, I've got people painting my house right now actually. So if you hear stuff on the outside, but it's Friday and I stopped caring yesterday. So we're just going to run through this and kind of explain a couple of things. So the kind of stories that can be shared. Number one, I posted one just to kind of get the ball rolling. And the most significant thing happening to me at the time was that I had given up an assistant professor job to do this, basically. And so that's something that, to me, I thought that was a relevant story because, number one, it explains how valuable you are. This is how important you are, that I feel like I'm not even spending enough time at a university making an impact, that I need to be more direct with you guys and help support you in whatever way I need to. So really, ultimately, this is a compliment to you. But the other thing is to recognize that there can be different avenues for you. There can be different ways for you to express your care and concern around kids and schools. And that doesn't mean you drop your job, which is what I think a lot of people were kind of taking that as. But it could mean that you add something to your repertoire, or you, start a side gig that might be a little more relevant to what you're trying to do. But the reason why I shared that story in particular is I'm looking for things in this Instagram feed that are either inspiring or insightful. There's something there's a valuable lesson that can be learned in your experience, good or bad. It can be very funny, very joyful, very lighthearted. It can be very scary, or it can just be a real cautionary tale. If there's something that you feel like really didn't go well and you want to warn, other people about it. The ultimate point of this thing is to connect teachers to each other. And what I'm finding is a lot of the systems we have, they kind of treat teachers as their role. Like that's who you are. That's your identity, teacher or educator or principal or whoever you are. That is who you are. You are an educator. And, I remember when I decided to leave, I really was struggling with it. I was talking to my mom and I said, I don't know what to do. I've been an educator my whole life. I don't know, what else I am. And she was like, oh, honey, you are so much more than that. And after spending 20 years in the field, that's how you identify yourself. We have this culture that just makes that the fundamental core of who you are. It's not the fundamental core of who you are. You may want to share some valuable stories about your role as a teacher, but you might also want to share valuable stories about how you handled something outside of your life. And because the lives of teachers are so different from the lives of a lot of other people, a lot of other professions, other teachers may be able to connect to that in a unique way. So I always think about, I have several teachers that I've known actually who have been diagnosed with breast cancer. And that's a point of connection among teachers, primarily because I personally, I'll share another story here. I had a scare when I was teaching high school. And the thing I remember about that was not the diagnosis or the concern or the fear around the medical condition. It was the stress of trying to find somebody to cover my 6th period. So that really tells you something about the problem that scheduling has and how that can really interfere in you being a human, and being a mother or a father or a daughter or a son to somebody who is struggling. We've got a lot of us have aging parents. That it doesn't always take all those things into account. And that's something that teachers can understand, about one another. Is that about teaching? No. Does it impact you in a different way because you are a teacher? Yeah, absolutely. So that's just one example. The questions but it can be anything. It can be funny, lighthearted stories about the weirdest things that you've heard kids do or see kids do. It can be something quirky about you that's very different, maybe from other people, but it's the way that you can connect. The thing that I do want to tell people, the other questions I get here, number one is like, what are there any concerns around privacy? We're talking about maybe kids, parents, other leaders, and that's a really legitimate concern. So if you follow the Humans of New York page, you can see that some pictures are taken with the person's identification in their face, or something else identifying about them is in the shot, but not always. There are a lot of people who just have their hands in their laps and that's the picture, and that's completely and totally fine. So privacy is a major concern for me on this one, and so before we tackle anything that's difficult, we will have this conversation around what are the things what's the lesson here. We need to get the lesson out without getting information out that is not going to serve you or your school community in any way. So there are tons and tons of ways to protect against that, okay? But not even just protecting other people in the story, you also need to be very aware of protecting yourself. So this is what I want you to think about when you think about sharing a story that might be a little scary for you or something that leaves you potentially vulnerable. Those can be incredibly powerful stories. But what I would tell you is to follow the advice of Burnie Brown, who's a social worker. She's been really diving into education lately, but her work's been around for years, shame and vulnerability research. And she has said that there are only certain people who deserve to hear your story. And the people that deserve that are the ones who can help you and support you. And what you need to think about really is try to think of the absolute worst troll, that you can find. If we end up with them on this account, they're gone, okay? But before you share something, really make sure that you have made your peace with it, that you have processed through everything that has happened, and try to think of the worst, most ridiculous, most asinine thing that somebody could possibly say to you in that post. And if you think, yeah, you're an idiot and I can't really help you, then you're at a good place where you can share that. But if you feel like this is even a benign comment could really crack your spirit, this is not the right time to share that story. You need to process through that a little bit more, okay? What else? What are the things that I want to share with you guys? Does photography need to be perfect, amazing, wonderful? No. Some of these projects have started as photography projects. This one, I'm not a good photographer. I work in ed tech a lot, but I'm not great at this stuff. So I can come out and talk with you and take the pictures. You can take your own pictures. You can share a picture, that you've already had. And we can even if it's not great, we can spruce it up. I mean, there's some fantastic tools around photography now that will bring out the important features of that picture. So don't worry about the photograph, okay? We can always make that, we'll make you look good, is what I always tell anybody who's on the podcast. Don't worry about it. If you're not accustomed to doing this, we'll make you sound good. We'll make everybody sound, amazing. And we can definitely make the point of your story pull out, and we can make the elements of the photograph really hit home for people who are watching the post. All right, anything else? I don't think so. I just wanted to remind you guys that if there are other questions that you have, there is a form on educatestl.org. There is a tab that says teacher stories. You can find it down there along with podcast and blog. So you can add information. Of course, you certainly don't have to fill out a form. I mean, you can, tweet me and email me, and there's a million different ways to, you could stalk my house. I mean, I'm not really hard to find. I'm sure everybody can find me these days. So just let me know if there's anything at all. I know, especially the people who have been following so far, I know who you are, and I know your stories, and I know how good your stories are, and I want you to share some of them. So I want you to get over it. Don't worry about it. Don't do whatever you're afraid of. There's nothing to be afraid of. So I do want you guys to really think about the things that you can share, because I cannot wait to help you share your story. Thanks everybody, and have a great weekend.